following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, March the 12th, 2026. Your readers,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost. So let's begin with the first page and the header article called Colleges Get Dressed for NIL Success. And a subtitle here is Apparel Companies, in other words, clothing companies, are among Power Four's biggest partners. Danielle Lerner of USA Today staff writes, when the University of Tennessee Athletic Department switched its apparel provider from Nike back to Adidas last summer, the biggest clue as to why was hidden within a sentence 7 paragraphs into the university's announcement. Tennessee's new 10-year partnership with Adidas, effective in July, will offer unprecedented NIL opportunities for student athletes across all 20 of the university's varsity programs, according to the announcement. Lucrative outfitter contracts between big-name sports apparel companies and college athletic departments. Nothing new. Universities get discounts on products and the cachet of being associated with blue-chip brands. Brands get to see their logos on TV and build relationships with generations of loyal fans. In college athletics' name, image and likeness, or NIL era, these symbiotic relationships have a new twist. Power Conference NCAA schools and apparel providers are negotiating contracts to include money earmarked for NIL, allowing schools to legally facilitate endorsement for athletes without exceeding revenue share limits. The scope of what these relationships look like has changed, according to Chris McGuire. He's the vice president of sports marketing for Adidas. Initially, the arms race, in quotes, was all about facilities and how could the financing from apparel deals help them build better facilities to attract the recruits. Now, it's about who can inject cash into NIL to secure more above-the-cap dollars for a program's athletes. The House versus NCAA settlement led to direct revenue sharing between colleges and athletes effective July 1 of last year. For this year, the academic year, each school can distribute a maximum of $20.5 million, the cap, to its athletes. But there is no limit to how much NIL money college athletes can receive from third parties, such as apparel companies, so long as the deals are approved by the College Sports Commission. Brands like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, they pay tens of millions of dollars to outfit SEC and Big Ten teams through partnerships that often last up to a decade. Building NIL provisions into those deals gives schools a method to increase total athlete compensation and gives brands a direct line to college athletes they were likely to target for endorsement deals anyway. Adidas isn't the only company helping schools get creative. Louisiana State University's extension with Nike this summer was announced in tandem with news of 10 LSU athletes signed to Nike's new NIL collective. Wisconsin inked a new deal with Under Armour that includes an NIL commitment. Pat Flynn, former Under Armour and Learfield employee and founder of College Athletics Management, that's a company that consults with athletic departments and brands, predicted that this practice is going to be the new normal. NIL has pumped new life into apparel deals, he said. The apparel companies are getting smarter in the fact that, okay, now schools need us to help on the NIL side a lot more than all the apparel and cash we can provide to athletic departments in the past. We can really serve a true purpose with NIL. The timing of the revenue sharing settlement was serendipitous because it happened when multiple power conference schools have expiring apparel contracts. Tennessee, Penn State, South Carolina are among the schools that agreed to switch apparel providers in 2026. LSU and Wisconsin signed extensions. Louisville, Michigan, Texas A&M, and the University of California, Los Angeles are among schools with apparel contracts which will expire in 2027 or 28. Now, schools can leverage an expiring apparel deal with into NIL funding, and brands are likewise using NIL to get a leg up at the negotiating table. It's a lever that can be pulled in negotiation by both sides, said consultant Dan Gale. When it comes to how the NIL components are structured, however, it's not one size fits all. In its recent 10-year contract renewal with Wisconsin, Under Armour pledged no less than $175,000. Sorry, let me try that again. Under Armour pledged no less than $175,000 in each year of the contract to NIL. At LSU, Nike launched a new NIL collective called Blue Ribbon Elite, featuring Tiger athletes, and plans to expand the program to other universities. Adidas, in addition to allotting money to Tennessee for NIL deals with a select number of athletes, now offers athletes at any Adidas-affiliated school to join its ambassador program and receive a commission for promoting the company's products. The financial detail of some apparel agreements, including those at Tennessee and LSU, are unknown because they run through separate nonprofit university foundations. And that allows the contracts to remain private and unobtainable through public records requests. Now, sometimes even if an apparel agreement doesn't specifically call for an NIL commitment, it can set the stage for related endeavors. That's what happened in 2024 at Texas Tech, where the university signed a 10-year contract with Adidas weeks before the company teamed up with NFL quarterback Patrick Mahomes to create an NIL collective for Texas Tech athletes. This February, Texas Tech athletics director Kirby Hocutt told program stakeholders that the Red Raiders plan to ask Adidas and other corporate sponsors to redirect money to athlete NIL deals that was initially intended for the athletic department. Now, I would say NIL is definitely a focus as we move forward with our university partners, McGuire said. It's a centerpiece of both our relationships with Tennessee and Penn State, and since we've expanded that to really include just about all of our major universities that are participating in the Power Four.
Pets do not affect kids' mental health, the study shows. From Nadia Yancy-Bragg of USA Today. Hal Herzog loves animals. His daughter and her wife are devoted pet parents who often bring their golden doodle moose to visit. He knows pets were good for him growing up and believes the same was true for his children and grandchildren. But Herzog, an emeritus professor of psychology who studies anthrozoology, also knows there's very little scientific evidence to prove it. A study of nearly 1,900 households with young children in Spain found that having certain kinds of pets like dogs and birds did not appear to affect the kids' mental health. Having other pets like cats, fish, turtles, and hamsters, either at certain ages or consistently throughout early childhood, had slight impacts. Still, Herzog said, the differences are actually trivial and have no clinical significance. Herzog said the results align with a host of other research that has documented a shocking and phenomenon he's dubbed the pet effect paradox. The pet effect paradox is what we pet owners know that our pets make our lives better, Herzog continued. However, most research has not shown that. The Spanish study published in October analyzed data from the Infancia y Medio Ambiente project tracking families with children periodically from pregnancy to 7 to 8 years old. More than half had pets of some kind. Researchers measured the children's mental health through parent questionnaires that asked about emotional symptoms, behavioral issues, hyperactivity, peer problems, and positive social behavior. Study author Lucia Gonzalez Safant said she initially expected that having cats or dogs would have a positive effect on children's mental health, but to her surprise, the only statistically significant result came from smaller animals like fish, hamsters, rabbits, and turtles. Children who had those pets consistently during their childhood showed fewer internalizing problems, such as symptoms related to anxiety or depression. Excuse me. Gonzalez Safant also found that having a cat between the ages of 4 and 5 was associated with more of these internalizing problems. But that finding wasn't as strong. Gonzalez Safant is a researcher with the Biomedical Research Networking Center for Epidemiology and Public Health and Foundation for the Promotion of Health and Biomedical Research of the Valencian Community. Gonzalez Safant said other research suggests there could be numerous explanations for her findings. Children might be more likely to perceive small animals as their pets and benefit from having a more active role in caring for them. Meanwhile, cats have a more ambivalent attachment style, which could influence their relationship with children. But she said that the data she analyzed can't actually explain what caused the outcomes, and that many other factors could have affected the findings. She says some of the results should be interpreted with caution, given that other research has found different effects. To draw from conclusions, we would need larger studies in different countries with more diverse samples, according to Gonzalez Safant. Confirming that owning a pet is what's actually causing the effects researchers observe is one of the biggest challenges of work like this, experts have said. You probably remember the old thing that they tell people in statistics classes. Correlation does not apply causally, according to Herzog. Catherine Northrup, a researcher from La Trobe University in Australia, said the best way to figure out whether owning a pet hurts or harms our mental health would be a randomized clinical trial. While that kind of trial is commonly done to test our new medications or treatments, it's basically impossible to do with pets, according to Northrup. Still, as pet ownership continues to rise, a growing body of research has tried to better understand the influence our animals have on our lives. There's not much research on children as young as those in the Spanish study, but the findings on older children and adults have been similarly mixed, said Northrup, who analyzed more than 130 studies on pet attachment and mental health. What gets really messy with the pet research is that it's not really consistent from study to study, she said. So some studies do find pet owners have better mental health. Some find worse. Some don't find a relationship. What does this mean for parents? Owners often say that their pets make them happy and that the conflicting research out there doesn't mean they're wrong, Northrup said. And it doesn't mean people should forego getting a pet for themselves or their children, said Northrup, who is both a parent and a pet owner. But at the same time, I also think sometimes people may think getting a pet might solve all their problems, according to Northrup. And pets can be really great, but they can make you happy, but they're not going to solve mental health disorders. Herzog echoed that, saying that people need to weigh the pros and cons of getting a pet in their specific circumstances. They should not get an animal just because they think it will make them healthier or happier. They should do it because they love animals, he said. And it's probably going to be fun to have them, and there's a pretty good chance it's going to make a difference in their lives, even though that difference is hard to measure.
Back to the front page. Fraud has long remained slippery. Trump's vow to expose corruption is a tall order. Sarah Wire of USA Today writes, President Donald Trump declared a war on fraud during his State of the Union address, embracing a task that has eluded presidents for decades. He even tapped his vice president to lead the campaign. This is the kind of corruption that shreds the fabric of a nation. We are working on it like you wouldn't believe, Trump said. It's a battle that fraud experts have pleaded with the government to take on for years, as transnational criminal gangs have learned to game the public safety net and steal trillions of dollars from American taxpayers. The Government Accountability Office estimated in January that the government loses as much as $521 billion a year to fraud. Haywood Talcove, one of the country's top government fraud experts, told USA Today that fraud could be as high as $1 trillion a year or more. The new effort's chances of success are unclear. Most modern presidents have promised to expose the roots of fraud in government systems, but they have not succeeded. And as methods of applying for and using government programs have steadily moved online in the past decade, fraud experts say the gangs committing fraud on a massive scale have outwitted attempts to stop them. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:15. Continuing. There's basically an untapped spigot, said Talcove, CEO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions Government, which works on fraud prevention strategies. The Trump administration has blamed immigrants for the fraud, especially in Minnesota and other Democrat-controlled states such as California. In his State of the Union address, Trump said Somali pirates brought a culture of corruption to the United States. Less than 24 hours later, Vice President Vance cut off some funding to Minnesota and put the state on notice. But experts such as Talcove stress fraud occurs in federal public assistance programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's called SNAP. Medicaid and housing assistance in all 50 states. It's not a red or a blue state problem, they say. It's an issue of how well states and the federal government work together. The White House did not respond to USA Today's request for more information about what Vance's efforts would look like, which federal agencies would be targeted, or how states would be included. Vance's efforts began immediately. At a news conference with Vance on February 25, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator Mehmet Oz announced that the federal government deferred $259 million in Medicaid payments to Minnesota amid concerns over possible fraud involving federal money intended for personal care and home and community-based services in the state. The state turned around and sued on March 2nd to force the administration to release the money. Minnesota's Democratic government, Tim Walz, told the House Oversight Committee in hearings on March 4 that the state is being unfairly targeted because members of the Somali community were part of the fraud ring. It's been pretty clear the president does not like me personally, Walz said. I think he has people around him who are trying to find quotas around immigration, and they saw the perfect storm, if you will. And that included some Somali folks. Now, Oz said his agency would follow with similar actions in other states. Minnesota is not the only state that's floundering, Oz said. We have more announcements with other states coming soon. Now, Vance said at the news conference he hopes to work with states on reducing Medicaid fraud, but he's not confident they all will. We'd love for that to happen, he said. I think you're going to see that in some states, even some blue states, but you're not going to see it in others. Many safety net programs are paid for by the feds, but they're run by the states. The federal government sees identifying and avoiding fraud as a state responsibility, but states have little incentive to spend state tax dollars preventing fraud involving federal money, Talcove said. There is zero incentive for a state to put an enforcement policy in place, he said. The Republican tax and spending law signed last summer forces states to respond to fraud in some programs, most notably SNAP, or risk taking on some of the program costs. It also requires states to more frequently check eligibility of people receiving SNAP and Medicaid. Labor Department Inspector General Anthony Desposito said, some states already have strong guardrails, others do not. When you have no guardrails and you eliminate the checks and balances because you're trying to claim that you're being compassionate, all of that leads to fraud, he said. There are some states that, you look at the metrics and they've done a great job. They have guardrails in place. And the fraud is very limited because they have oversight of it. And then there's other states which, they take what is federal money and they think it's, like monopoly money. Although the Trump administration spent 2025 focused on blocking billions in aid to 5 Democrat-controlled states because of suspected fraud, all states grapple with fraud, and they aren't solely controlled by Democrats. The U.S. Sentencing Commission found in fiscal 2024, states with the most government benefit fraud cases were Florida, North Carolina, Puerto Rico, South Carolina, Virginia, New York, and Texas. Mark Haskins, former branch chief of the Special Investigations Unit for the Department of Agriculture's Food and Nutrition Service, said more strict federal standards for how the programs are administered could help stem the fraud, because right now the rules vary by state. We are our own worst enemy in this, said Haskins, who served under multiple administrations. We've allowed so many loopholes, left so many doors open, that these transnational crime organizations are crawling through everywhere they can. The Trump administration has tried to tie fraud to immigration in the public's mind. The president said in his address to Congress that importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings these problems right here to the USA, and it's the American people who pay the price. Now, in December, the president cited suspected fraud in Minnesota's Somali community and tied to a 2022 investigation into misused pandemic daycare money. Trump's claims were used in part to justify a sweeping immigration crackdown in Minneapolis. The Justice Department has charged more than 80 people since 2022, many of them U.S. citizens of Somali descent, in connection with COVID-related fraud schemes, targeting government-funded programs, including child nutrition and housing initiatives. The suspected ringleader of the scheme is not Somali, but a white woman, Amy Bach, age 45, who was convicted in March of last year and faces up to 33 years in prison. It's unfair to characterize it as Minnesota only, Talcove said. It's happening in all 50 states. Statistically, it's just not accurate to blame immigrants for large-scale fraud, according to David Beer, Director of Immigration Studies at the libertarian think tank Cato Institute. Non-citizens face more barriers to applying for benefits, and naturalized citizens are screened for criminal history, he said. And nationwide data shows fewer instances of fraud convictions among non-citizens and naturalized, he said. Targeting a group of people for investigation based on where they are born, it's not fair, he said. What people are asking for in some cases are profiling of the immigrant population or Somalis or non-citizens or whatever, he said. That does not comport with due process to investigate someone just because of where they were born or their citizenship status. Some states are reluctant to crack down on fraud because they worry about accidentally cutting off help for Americans who need it, Talcove said. The number one thing he stresses to lawmakers is the people committing the most fraud are not their constituents. Most of the money probably is not even staying in the country, he said. Transnational criminal groups have specialties. They hit all 50 states. They share data, he said. They have money mules here, and then they take the money and they move it out of the country. Fraud has increased dramatically as more government systems have moved online. During the pandemic, when the government shoveled money out the door to keep the economy moving, international grifters went nuts, Talcove said. Since then, the fraudsters have become even more sophisticated. Some have become experts in committing fraud using the same identities in the same programs across multiple states because they know states don't share information, he said. Others specialize in creating fake businesses to get paid for providing services to people who don't exist. Haskins said criminals are so good at covering their tracks that investigators often can't even follow the money. For example, they might sign up to accept SNAP with one bank account and then charge the bank account a half dozen times before the fraud is even uncovered. Really, what it boils down to is the antiquated legacy systems in government, Haskins said. You know, whether it's Medicaid fraud, Medicare fraud, workers' comp fraud, the systems are outdated. Michael Peck, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Secret Service's Global Investigative Operations Center, said that for the longest time the government thought these criminal groups were working independently. Now we are fully confident in saying this is organized crime. They have the tools, they have the means, the know-how, and they are collaborating. The groups have found vulnerabilities and weaknesses in the application process and have learned how to apply quickly and easily, he said. They are very well versed in what they're doing. They study, they know exactly what needs to be on an application, and this is big business to them.
At least 2 die in Indiana as tornadoes hit the Midwest. From Nadia Yancey Bragg and Doyle Rice of USA Today. At least 2 people are dead after a line of severe thunderstorms swept across the country, unleashing devastating tornadoes in the central United States. A large tornado, rain, and hail hit the small community of Lake Village in northwest Indiana, authorities said early March the 11th. Firefighters worked until 4 a.m. local time, searching the damaged areas, and found several very injured people, along with the 2 dead, said Lori Postma, a spokesperson for the Lake Village Volunteer Fire Department. Once again. Rescue crews were still searching, and Postma said miraculous things have occurred, but the search was hindered by the darkness and weather overnight. We just need a little daylight, she said. Indiana Governor Mike Braun said on social media that state authorities, first responders, and the American Red Cross were on the ground providing support. Maureen and I are praying for the families who lost loved ones and for every Hoosier impacted by the devastating tornadoes in northwest Indiana, according to Braun. The tornado was spotted in Lake Village as several intense supercell thunderstorms moved across northwest Indiana and northern Illinois on March the 10th, the National Weather Service outpost in Chicago said. One of the storms spawned a family of at least 4 tornadoes across 5 counties, though officials were working to confirm the strength and number of the twisters, the Weather Service reported. The same storm that produced the tornadoes also dropped exceptionally large hail, including a hailstone with a diameter of 6 inches. And Kankakee, Illinois, which may be a new state record, the Weather Service reported also. According to USA Today's outrage tracker, nearly 30,000 customers were without power in Indiana and Illinois early on March the 11th. Severe hail also was reported in Texas, and flash flooding was being reported in Michigan, where a storm spawned four deadly twisters March the 6th. In Lake Village, homes collapsed. Livestock was set loose, and people were trapped as the storm barreled through. Postman said 4 firefighters' homes were among those that were severely damaged. Considering the damage that we've seen, I am really surprised there aren't a lot more injuries. Extensive damage was done to the surrounding county's electrical system, including hundreds of downed wires and damaged poles. Crews were working to restore power in the area. We will be working feverishly to bring our little town back to where it was, Postma said. We are a strong community and we will be just fine. After battering the Midwest, severe weather was expected to continue to shift eastward through March the 11th and into the evening of March the 12th before fading, AccuWeather reported. The severe weather threat zone stretched from Texas to Louisiana to parts of New York and much of Pennsylvania. All severe weather modes were possible, including damaging winds, large hail, flash flooding, and tornadoes. This according to AccuWeather.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30.
Continuing, a tornado watch was in effect for portions of Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, meaning weather conditions were ripe for tornadoes to form, the Storm Prediction Center said. Major metro areas at risk for severe weather included Houston, San Antonio, Nashville, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Atlanta, and Columbus, Ohio. Thunderstorms could produce heavy to excessive rain that threatens flooding from East Texas into New York, according to the National Weather Service.
Ships are attacked in the Strait of Hormuz, prompting a rescue. Subtitle: United Nations warns of food shortages amid the war. This is a joint article by Michael Loria, Christopher Kahn, Ramon Padilla, Stephen J. Beard, Zach Anderson, and Zachary Shermel. Iran has taken credit for 2 out of 3 ships struck by projectiles in the Strait of Hormuz on March the 11th, as the country traded strikes with the United States and Israel across the Middle East, and the U.S. average gas price hit $3.59 a gallon. Iranian naval commander Alireza Tangziri, head of the naval arm of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said on social media that 2 ships in the strait, including Thailand-flagged vessel Mayuri Nari, were struck after they ignored warnings, triggering a rescue mission as crew members fled from flames that erupted on the bulk carrier. Tangziri added that any vessel wishing to pass along the strait must obtain permission from Iran. The attacks occurred with the United States struck more than a dozen Iranian mine-laying vessels, and President Trump again warned Tehran against blocking traffic through the strait, where 1/5 of global oil and liquefied natural gas normally passes. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps previously said it would not allow 1 liter of oil from the Middle East to reach the U.S. or its allies. The International Energy Agency proposed on March 11th the release of 400 million barrels of oil. That's the largest release of oil reserves in its history, to bring down crude prices that have soared amid the war. Now still, remarks from President Trump earlier in the week offered markets some reassurance that the war might not be drawn out for months. Oil prices have fallen to less than $90 a barrel from nearly $120 earlier in the week. Gas prices, meanwhile, have reached a point where they're likely to start causing pain to the American pocketbook. The national average on March the 11th stood at $3.59, according to GasBuddy. Analysts have told USA Today that $3.50 is a rough threshold for where consumers feel the pinch. Perhaps more important, prices shot up quickly. They're more than 64 cents higher than a month ago, and there's still uncertainty in the oil markets, meaning not likely to recede as fast. The Israeli military launched fresh attacks on Lebanon and Iran on March the 11th, with a reported strike hitting an apartment building in southern Beirut. Meanwhile, the UAE said it intercepted missiles launched from Iran. Saudi Arabia and Qatar also reported drone and missile fire. Since the war began on February 28th, U.S. forces have struck more than 5,500 targets inside Iran, including more than 60 ships, according to U.S. Central. On March the 10th, the United States launched strikes nearly every hour from different locations and eliminated the last 4 Shahid Soleimani-class warships, some of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' most advanced warships, according to Admiral Brad Cooper in a video. U.S. forces continue to bring devastating combat power against the Iranian regime, he said. Now, Cooper added that Iranian missiles and drone attacks have dropped significantly, but noted that the regime has continued to launch attacks from highly populated cities in Iran. In less than 2 weeks of war, more than 1,000 people in Iran and hundreds throughout the region have been killed. Among them are 7 American soldiers killed in a retaliatory attack, and scores of students from an Iranian school who died in the strike, which is linked to the United States. The heads of the U.S. intelligence community are scheduled to testify before Congress on March 17 to discuss worldwide threats. Witnesses at the hearing of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence will include Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and FBI Director Kash Patel. The attacks came as an Iranian diplomat confirmed that Mojtaby Khamenei, the country's new supreme leader, was wounded in the February 28th airstrikes that killed his father, the late supreme leader Ali Khamenei, and several members of his family. Mojtaby Khamenei's injuries were confirmed by an Iranian diplomat in an interview with The Guardian. I have heard that he was injured in his legs and hand and arm, according to Salarian, Tehran's ambassador to Cyprus. I think he is in the hospital because he is injured. Khamenei has not made any public appearances since his appointment, either in person or by video. And so far, the U.S. officials have declined to comment on whether Khamenei was injured in strikes. As far as his status, that's not something I can comment on right now. According to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, the war in the Middle East will likely drive up food shortages throughout the region. Officials in the United Nations World Food Program have warned. According to this group, the fighting will interrupt supply chains and drive up costs for families in the region. In particular, the group warned of food shortages in Lebanon, where fighting between Israel and Hezbollah has forced around 700,000 people in the country to flee. In Iran, where an economic crisis before the war was making it difficult for some families to afford food, and in Gaza, where intermittent border closures have driven up prices. The war's impact on shipments of oil and fertilizer in the region is also expected to drive up food prices around the world, the UN group said. Meanwhile, the European Union issued new sanctions against 19 Iranian officials and others it accuses of serious human rights violations. As the Iran war continues, the European Union will protect its interests and pursue those responsible for domestic repression, according to Kaja Kallas, the EU's chief of foreign affairs and security policy. It also sends a message to Tehran that Iran's future cannot be built on repression.
Family of family of teacher killed during teen prank speaks out. Dropping charges would prevent another tragedy. From Melina Khan of USA Today. The family of a teacher in Georgia who was killed when a student prank went awry wants the criminal charges against the teens dropped, according to multiple reports. In statements to the New York Times and NBC News, the family of Jason Hughes said they support dropping all charges against the 5 18-year-olds suspected of being involved, including Jaden Ryan Wallace, who has been charged with first-degree vehicular homicide. Wallace ran over Jason Hughes on Friday, March the 6th, outside Hughes' home in Gainesville, Georgia, the Hall County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. Wallace and 4 other teens, Elijah Tate Owens, Aiden Hux, Anna Catherine Luque, and Ariana Cruz, went to Hughes' home to roll trees with toilet paper, police said. But as they got ready to leave, Hughes came out of the home. As Wallace began driving away, Hughes tripped and fell into the road, and Wallace ran over him, according to police. The teens spotted and tried to help before first responders arrived. Hughes, who was 40, died after being taken to the hospital, according to the release. All 5 teens have been charged with criminal trespassing and littering on private property. Wallace also has been charged with reckless driving, police said. It was not clear whether he has retained an attorney. Hughes' family said he slipped and fell into the road because it had been raining, according to statements to the New York Times and NBC News. The longtime teacher knew the teens were coming to pull a prank on him and was waiting to catch them in the act, the family said. They added that they support getting the charges dropped for all involved. Our family is determined to prevent a separate tragedy from occurring, ruining the lives of these students. This would be a counter to Jason's lifelong dedication of investing in the lives of these children, again, according to the statement. Hall County District Attorney Lee Dara said in a statement to USA Today on March the 10th that the charges were made without conferring with our office first. He also said he would be meeting with Hughes' family after an appropriate period of grieving. Hughes was a math teacher and golf coach at North Hall High School in Gainesville, according to a district teacher site in a profile from North Hall High School's marketing class. According to the profile, his wife Laura also was a math teacher at the school, and the couple have 2 children. I love investing in the next generation and having an influence on them, Hughes said in the profile. Our hearts are broken. Jason Hughes was a loving husband, a devoted father, a passionate teacher, mentor, and coach who was loved and respected by students and colleagues, said Will Schofield, superintendent of Hall County Schools. He gave so much to so many in numerous ways as he faithfully served God. Our hearts and prayers go out to his wife and family. A GoFundMe page for the Hughes family has raised more than $400,000 as of March the 10th. Jason's life was a blessing to so many, and his untimely passing will be indescribably difficult for his wife and 2 young boys for years to come, the fundraising page says. He was involved with NG3, a nonprofit organization focused on mentoring students. The organization paid tribute to Hughes on Facebook, writing, "The way he invested in his family, his community, and the next generation has changed the trajectory of so many." The day before Hughes' death, the Hall County School District advised students in a Facebook post not to participate in destructive pranks. A prank war between students during prom season had gone too far in past years, the post said. We urge all students to refrain from participating in any activities that may cause harm or destruction to school or personal property. Such actions not only reflect poorly on the individual involved, but also tarnish the reputation of our schools, families, and community. The post also mentioned serious consequences that can arise from engaging in destructive behavior, including criminal charges. We cannot stress enough the importance of making responsible choices and thinking about the long-term impact of your actions, it said. It was unclear whether Wallace, Owens, Hux, Luque, and Cruz are students at the school.
I'm going to go back to page 2 for the final shot in the main section. The United States is monitoring possible Iranian sleeper cells. This is on page 2. Catherine Palmer of USA Today writes, President Donald Trump said the administration is on top of possible Iranian sleeper cells operating inside the United States, offering few details about their existence and their level of potential threat. At a news conference March the 9th, Trump responded to a question about whether the Iranian government had activated undercover groups or cells within the U.S. Oh, they've been trying for a long time, and we've been very much on top of it, Trump said. We're watching every single one of them. Yeah, we know a lot about them, the president added. He said the Democrat-led shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security was impeding his administration's efforts to address such concerns. Now, the FBI is the lead agency for investigating and preventing acts of domestic and international terrorism. The funding lapse for the Department of Homeland Security primarily has affected the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Transportation Security Administration, and Customs and Border. But much of Homeland Security's typical work, including ICE, continues. DHS did not immediately respond to requests for comment. When asked about Trump's remarks about sleeper cells, the FBI said, no comment. ABC reported that the United States has intercepted encrypted communications believed to have originated in Iran that may serve as an operational trigger for sleeper assets outside the country, according to the news outlet's review of a federal government alert sent on to law enforcement agencies. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45. To wrap up here, what exactly is a sleeper cell? Well, sleeper cell refers to a group of operatives who are working undercover until activated inside enemy territory. It can refer to a spy network or a terrorist group. The administration has not released any advisory about specific threats of Iranian or Iran-aligned sleeper cells in the U.S. since the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran began February 28. But the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are on a war footing, USA Today has reported, and had already been in that status in the lead-up to the U.S.-Israeli air campaign. The U.S. went on high alert last June over concerns of retaliation from Tehran after the United States and Israel bombed 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Now, the Iranian regime has a long history that goes back at least 46 years of assassinations and other terrorist plots on U.S. soil and against Americans overseas. Those include plots the United States has disrupted against Iranian dissidents and against Trump and his former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, in response to a military strike in 2020 that killed Iranian military leader General Qasem Soleimani. On March 6th, a federal jury convicted an Iranian operative, Asif Raza Merchant, of taking part in a terrorism attempt and plot to assassinate Trump in 2024. But that was well before the war in Iran.
Turning to the money section of USA Today, job hopping is popular but can also do some harm. Some employers may see it as a red flag, according to experts. From Daniel Devise of USA Today, you've been in your job for a few years now and your salary hasn't budged. Your thoughts turn to the want ads. Changing jobs for a higher income is a time-honored tradition. Switch jobs too many times, however, and you risk being labeled a job hopper. With that red flag in mind, we pose a question to several career experts. How often can you safely change employers if your goal is to earn more money? American workers seem less loyal to their companies today than in the recent past. The median worker had a job tenure of 3.9 years in 2024, according to federal data, the lowest figure for employee tenure since the year 2002. The typical active job seeker has been in their current job for roughly 2 years and 3 months, according to Indeed, the employment website. The job market right now is a lot more fluid, said Pyra Rathod, workplace trends editor at Indeed. Salaries are rising for many workers who remain in their jobs, but perhaps not as swiftly as they would like. The average employer planned to award pay increases totaling 3.5% in this year, according to an October survey of 1,000 organizations by Mercer, a human resources consultant. With inflation hovering at an annual rate between 2 and 3%, a 3.5% pay raise is essentially flat. One way to raise your pay, of course, is to land a higher paying job. Corporate recruiters are deluged with job letters. The number of applications filed on LinkedIn rose 45% between 2024 and 25, the New York Times reports. Artificial intelligence has made it easier to apply. When does job hunting become job hopping? The term is often defined as staying in roles for a little less than 2 years, according to Rathod. Matthew Bidwell, a management professor at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, agrees. If you're systemically in jobs less than 2 to 3 years, they start to get nervous. For potential employers, job hopping can be a red flag. It suggests one of two things, according to Bidwell. Either it's because you're incompetent and you keep getting edged out, or you have very itchy feet. Employers don't like turnover. It takes time and money to train a replacement. The equivalent of 1 or 2 years' salary, according to Bidwell. That means I don't want to hire you if you leave after 1 or 2 years, he added. Yet the stigma associated with job hopping may be fading. Is the workplace loyalty a thing of the past? American workplace culture used to value loyalty, a theme embodied in the pension, a retirement savings vehicle that rewarded workers for long tenure. But those sensibilities have changed. Attitudes have shifted drastically in the last 20 years, said Christine Sundry, Associate Director of Career Center at Carnegie Mellon University's Heinz College. Career paths today aren't necessarily linear. Young adults emerge from college today with more debt, Sundry said, and under immediate pressure to land a high salary. The remote work revolution of the COVID era simplified the logistics of changing jobs. Job hopping became something very serious a few years ago, said Jasmine Escalera, a career expert at the networking site Bold. Recent corporate layoffs may embolden workers to circulate their resumes. The job seeker doesn't feel that they have to be loyal because the company isn't being loyal, according to Sundry. Changing jobs every year or two doesn't necessarily equate to job hopping, according to experts. Among 20-somethings, some job hopping is expected. Older workers might be expected to stay put longer. I think a lot depends on your job and on your age, Bidwell said. Changing jobs every year in your early to mid-20s isn't likely to be a problem. Over the years, if you keep doing it, it does start to raise eyebrows. If you do job hop, career experts say, be ready to explain your decision in future job interviews. What matters more than how often you switch jobs is whether each move makes sense, and more importantly, whether it can be explained to a potential employer, according to Rathod. If you don't want to explain your job hopping to future employees, then consider alternatives. Here are a few. Negotiate higher pay. Most American workers report they didn't ask for a higher salary than they were offered when they took their current job. Pew Research reports. A higher salary becomes important, job experts say, if you don't get meaningful raises in the years to come. Next, ask for a raise. Most American workers feel they're entitled to a pay raise, but many balk at asking for one, according to a 2023 survey from the site B2B Reviews. Employees say they are not sure how to ask for a raise. They fear rejection or worry about job security. Clearly, a worker who does not ask for a raise is less likely to get one. Next, ask for a promotion. Better still, career experts say ask for a promotion. The other way people raise their wages is changing jobs inside companies, according to Bidwell. The nice thing about getting promoted is you get a pay raise and you also get bumped into a higher pay band. With a promotion, you become eligible for higher paying jobs at other companies as well. And finally, leverage a job offer for a raise. One way to persuade an employer to offer a raise or promotion, career experts say, is to say you've been offered another job, but the strategy is risky and can backfire. If your company rewards you with higher pay for rejecting another offer, your colleagues may look at you as a little bit disloyal. And if I think you're halfway out the door, how much am I going to invest in you?
No fun ride on stagflation's slide. The scenario is economic bad news everybody hates. Andrea Require, not sure how to pronounce, writes this article. For those who believe history always repeats itself, a surge in oil prices amid a weakening economy is a scary sign. Economists, analysts, and investors have spent the past few days sounding the alarm about stagflation. That's a uniquely nerve-wracking scenario in which high inflation dogs a low growth, stagnant economy. It was last seen in the United States in 1970 and conjures images of lines at gas stations and interest rates in the double digits. The United States is seeing growth shock, said Don Rissmiller, partner and chief economist for Stratagas, in a March 8th note to investors, and an inflation shock, higher energy prices due to geopolitics, all at the same time. Now, slow growth can be easier to manage than inflation, Rissmiller wrote, adding, "We are not raising our 2026 U.S. recession odds yet. They still stand at 20%. A short-lived move in energy prices can be offset with a decline in the saving rate, but it will not take much more for those odds to start climbing. We probably only have a few weeks before the Middle East trade turns critical." And in a March 8th note to investors, famed economist Ed Yardeni wrote that he was raising the odds of his meltdown scenario, which now includes a 1970s-style stagflation, from 20% to 35%. Oil prices have surged nearly 40% since the start of the war in Iran, boosting prices throughout the economy and weakening the likelihood of Federal Reserve interest rate cut. Traders now almost unanimously expect policymakers to hold rates steady at their March meeting, and most bets don't expect any cuts until much later in the year. But concerns about the state of the underlying economy linger, boosted by a shocking jobs report March 6, which showed a loss of 92,000 jobs in February. Now, under normal circumstances, that kind of slow or even negative growth might prompt the Fed to cut rates to stimulate demand. On March 6, Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee told the Wall Street Journal exactly that the current conditions create exactly the kind of stagflationary environment that's as uncomfortable as any that faces a central bank. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, March the 12th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Ken Drost.
and Jim Duffy. And turning to our sports page. Crosby deal nixed. Ravens fly in another direction. From Nick Bringerhoff of USA Today. Trey Hendrickson has a new home. The veteran defensive end has agreed to terms with the Baltimore Ravens in free agency. He will sign a 4-year deal worth up to $112 million per multiple reports. It's a move that came together quickly after the Ravens backed out of the trade agreement for Max Crosby, who reportedly failed a physical. That was made possible by the fact that nothing is official in the NFL until the new league year began at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on March the 11th. Just like the Crosby deal, Hendrickson will need to pass a physical before signing a contract to officially become a Raven. The 27-year-old was considered the third best player in free agency for 2026 and the best defender on the board, according to USA Today Sports' Nate Davis. It has been a long road to get to this point for Hendrickson, who was involved in a well-documented contract dispute with the Cincinnati Bengals for quite some time. There were multiple trade requests and a public falling out. The Bengals decided against using the franchise tag on the pass rusher, allowing him to go to free agency. Hendrickson has been one of the most productive pass rushers in the league when healthy. He recorded 17.5 sacks in both the 2023 and 24 seasons before being limited to 7 games in 2025 because of injury. He had core muscle surgery to end his 2025 season. The pass rusher was listed on the injury report with a hip issue going back to week 7. That status later included a pelvis injury as the season progressed. It's unclear how that will impact Hendrickson's physical with the Ravens. The normally routine process has come under the microscope in the wake of the Crosby trade news.
Nancy Armour, columnist for USA Today, writes, Adam Silver's indifference to WNBA leaves dollars on the table. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver looks more foolish by the day. The PWHL has already sold out a pro women's hockey game at Madison Square Garden next month. Revenue from ticket sales jumped more than 200% in unrivaled second season, while merchandise was up 130%. A new study by EDO found that ads during women's sporting events generated 15% more engagement than ads on primetime broadcast and cable. Silver, the WNBA, and owners in both leagues, meanwhile, are still dithering over a new WNBA contract, failing to appreciate that they're putting their financial goldmine at risk. We need to now move toward the next level of sense of urgency, Silver said last month during NBA All-Star Weekend, and not lose momentum in terms of the amazing amount of progress we've seen in women's basketball. Looking forward to when that message kicks in, because right now there are sloths with greater senses of urgency. The WNBA had said a new deal needed to be reached by March 10 to prevent the upcoming season from being delayed. Yet the deadline has passed and we have no agreement. While the league and its players' union remain far apart on negotiating revenue sharing and salary cap agreements, the real sticking point had never been about percentages or dollars and cents. It's that Silver and the NBA, which still owns about 42% of the league, don't see the WNBA as a legitimate financial powerhouse. This is not unique to Silver and his owners. The NCAA, FIFA, U.S. soccer broadcasters, pretty much everybody who has had the opportunity to cash in on women's sports has botched it. They dismiss it as a passing fad or are so ignorant or outright hostile to the appeal that they are blind to the market. Only when the data points or public shame becomes too overwhelming to ignore, do they get on board? With NBA owners, there's also resentment for all those years they bankrolled the WNBA. Before you man babies started yowling, unless you also squawked all those years the NBA was losing money, or are carrying pitchforks about the teams still losing money, zip it. Compounding all this is no one thinks female athletes are serious when they say that they are determined to get their worth. We're all just fighting for what we think we deserve. I just want to see value. I just want to feel valued. 3-time WNBA champion Jackie Young said last week. That's the biggest thing. What the players want is not an outrageous ask. They are looking for 25% of gross league revenue, which is about half of what NBA players get. An even split of revenue, or even close to it, is standard for the major men's leagues. The maximum salary would grow to nearly $2 million, which is still more than $1 million less than the minimum for an NBA veteran. The Women's National Basketball Association claims it can't afford this, which is not surprising. I've yet to find a sports league that has not cried poor during labor negotiations. But the cost of not getting a deal done is going to be far greater, and it's going to be silver. The WNBA, the NBA, and its owners who are going to lose the most. Because while they're refusing to give the players their due, others are going to step into the void. While the W drags its heels on sustaining the moneymaker it already has, sponsors and fans are tripping over themselves to put their money into women's sports. Unrivaled said it generated $45 million in revenue in 2026. It's up from $27 million in its inaugural season. In addition to sellouts, when it took the league on the road to Philadelphia and Brooklyn, it added new sponsors, including PwC, Maker's Mark, and Cheez-It. Denver, which was passed over in the latest round of WNBA expansion, will welcome the PWHL's takeover tour back next week after setting an attendance record at Ball Arena last season. Its new NWSL team, the Denver Summit, has already sold 45,000 tickets for its first soccer game, which is going to be played later this month at the Broncos Mile High Stadium. ESPN has announced it is replacing Sunday Night Baseball with Women's Sports Sundays this summer. Less than a week after acquiring rights to international basketball games, TNT Sports was set to make bank with the U.S. women's game against Senegal on March the 11th, better known as the return of Caitlin Clark. The WNBA, meanwhile, is watching from the sidelines. Women's sports is not a charity project. It's a growth business, a massive one at that. And the WNBA is going to get passed by because Silver and his owners don't get it. Worse, they don't seem to care.
U.S. Paralympians competing and loving in the Milan Games. From Ellie Campbell, Alex Carpenter, Trevor McGee, and Jordan Smitherman. The 2026 Winter Paralympics are underway, and Team USA is looking for a medal haul. Get to know the top American athletes competing at the Milan Cortina Games. First, Declan Farmer in sled hockey. The most decorated Paralympic hockey player of all time, Declan Farmer, enters his fourth Paralympic Games holding the U.S. sled hockey record for goals, assists, and total points, along with 3 gold medals. Declan made his debut with U.S. sled hockey at 14, and the Tampa, Florida native played in his first Paralympic Games at 16. With 420 career points, the forward has tallied a whopping 141 points, more than the second-place player. It's like having Michael Jordan on your team. It's the biggest advantage in the world, teammate Jack Wallace said. You could just let him get him the puck in pretty much every situation, and something good's going to happen. Next, Steve Empt, wheelchair mixed doubles curling. A veteran leader and the oldest member of Team USA at 56, Steve Empt takes the ice for the Paralympic Games' newest curling discipline, wheelchair mixed doubles. With more than a decade of experience, the 56-year-old motivational speaker and former Yukon Huskies walk-on guard was determined to help Team USA today, or I should say just Team USA, win its first medal in Paralympic curling. But the Americans lost 11-10 to Latvia in the bronze medal game on March the 11th. Our program has come through the roof. The USOPC basically told USA Curling, hey, we got to start winning medals, said Empt. The brass and the USOPC have all done a great job of putting expectations on us. We're in a business. USOPC wants medals. That's fine, all right. Next is Oksana Masters, a para-biathlon. The 36-year-old Oksana Masters is a dual season Paralympian who owns 10 gold, 7 silver, and 3 bronze medals across both the summer and winter games. The 20th medal, which she earned March 7th in the women's sitting biathlon, made her just the 6th American to win 20 or more Paralympic medals. She's earned 6 of her 10 gold medals in the winter, holding the title for most decorated winter Paralympian of all time. Masters is an 8-time Paralympian, qualifying for every summer and winter Paralympics since 2012. Masters' first place showing in the women's sitting biathlon gave Team USA its first gold medal of the 2026 Winter Paralympics. Next is Brenna Huckabee, para snowboard. 3-time Paralympic gold medalist Brenna Huckabee returns to her third Winter Games in Milan Cortina. The 30-year-old para snowboarder made her debut at the 2018 Pyongyang Games and came home with gold medals in the women's snowboard cross and the first ever women's banked slalom gold, the only 2 events she competed in. Huckabee added another gold in the banked slalom in Beijing in 2022. Huckabee garners a large social media following while balancing life as a mother of 2. She has over 120,000 followers on Instagram and nearly 500,000 followers on TikTok. Huckabee is also a co-founder of the media collective Collectured. Next, Audrey Crowley, para-alpine skiing. Audrey Crowley is a young phenom who was looking to make waves during her first Paralympic Games. Crowley, who was 19, was born into a skiing family and has been looking forward to this moment her entire life. This is a really big opportunity to just kind of show everyone what I'm capable of, kind of what I've been working toward, Crowley said. In her first year competing in the 2025 FIS Para-Alpine Skiing World Cup, she won bronze in the women's standing giant slalom, igniting onto the para-skiing scene. She graduated from the Vail Ski and Snowboard Academy last May and will enroll at the University of Denver this fall. And finally, Zach Miller for para-snowboard. 7-time World Cup medalist Zach Miller enters his second Paralympic Games with more to give. The Silverthorne, Colorado native was born with cerebral palsy and joined his first snowboard team at age 13. Now a leader on the U.S. para snowboard team, Miller won his first world title in 2022, but injured 2 discs in his back shortly before his Paralympic debut in Beijing. He competed with the injury but finished 11th in snowboard cross. The following year, Miller was named the best athlete with a disability at the 2023 ESPY Awards. Through early competition in the 2026 Games, Miller has already beat his previous best with a 6th place finish in snowboard cross. Healthy and ready for the magnitude of the event, or of the moment, Zach Miller is an athlete to watch.
Roll Up details themes of future PGA Tour schedule. Cameron Jordan of Golf Week writes the following article. Brian Rollup confidently strutted up the steps and behind the podium in front of 1,100 PGA Tour employees, media, and others for the biggest press conference of his life. It was also a peek behind the curtain of what the future of the PGA Tour may look like. The commissioner of the PGA Tour since last summer, Rollup, spoke on March 11th for the first time since the Tour Championship in August, detailing plans for the future PGA Tour schedule and how the Tour is going to look different in the not-so-distant future. He spoke about his work with the Future Competition Committee, which Tiger Woods heads as chairman, the 6 themes that are beginning to emerge from months and months of talks with players, sponsors, and media partners, and the timeline for all this to be implemented.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:15.
Continuing, but Rollup was cautious at the same time, saying no decisions have been made. This remains a work in progress, and it is by no means a baked cake. Rollup said that there has been an emphasis on playing the season from late January to early September, with the structure including the majors, the players, postseason, Ryder Cup, President's Cup, and the first track of elevated events. All in all, it adds up to between 21 and 26 events in a year for the world's best. Today, we have 8 signature events. We are effectively looking to at least double that number. To be clear, we will have a second track of PGA Tour tournaments, which will ladder up to those elevated events. A key consideration, Rollup said, has been establishing more consistent fields every week on tour. The initial plan is to move away from no-cut, small-field signature events and target something closer to 120-player fields with a cut. Rollup said the PGA Tour plans to open every season with a marquee event on the West Coast, allowing the Tour to finish on network television in prime time on the East Coast. Think, Pebble Beach, Riviera, Torrey Pines, or TPC Scottsdale as ideal starts for the PGA Tour. Now, that tour currently competes in only 4 of the top 10 largest U.S. media markets, and Rollup wants to change that. He sees an opportunity, and the tour is exploring cities like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and Boston, among others. Rollup has used the word scarcity in the past, and he expanded on his definition. Ultimately, scarcity is not about the number of events we have, but rather scarcity is about making every event we have matter, he said. This is why we are evaluating the role of promotion and relegation between those 2 tracks within our competitive model. Rollup said the tour plans to implement a merit-based system that leans into players having a chance to play their way into the signature events from a group of events that is lower on the totem pole and spread throughout the summer and possibly into the fall. You see this work powerfully elsewhere, including in English football, where clubs move between the Premier and the Championship based on their performance, Rollup said. Applying elements of that approach to the PGA Tour creates real consequences, lifting the competitive standard across the entire platform. For our members, the message is pretty simple. Play well, and you earn the opportunity to compete in our biggest events and for more money. One of the Tour's biggest issues in recent years has been its approach to the postseason. Expect widespread changes for the final events of the year, including possible changes in venue. We have heard from our fans and our partners. They want more drama, Rollup said. We are considering the potential integration of match play, either at the Tour Championship or across the postseason as a whole, bringing win or go home moments to the conclusion of our season. In the end, Roll-Up again emphasized nothing has been finalized. The PGA Tour is still gathering input from players, partners, sponsors, and more. No recommendations have gone to the player-led boards yet either. Looking ahead, we expect to make more meaningful progress by the summer. And following our June 22nd board meeting, I plan to host another press conference at the Travelers Championship, Roll-Up said. Between then and the Tour Championship, we will continue to provide updates on our committee's work and our path forward. Roll-Up also emphasized some of the changes were more likely to take place for the 2028 season rather than 27, although some elements could be addressed for next season. In the end, Roll-Up said a lot of things that have been popular talking points among those who follow the sport and its fans. How much of the changes are actually going to occur? With nothing finalized, the waiting game will continue. But Roll-Up's confidence has certainly painted a positive picture of what could come down the road for the PGA Tour. This is a complex process with many constituencies impacted, Roll-Up said. We will continue to move with urgency, but we are focused on getting it right.
Adebayo scores second most points in NBA history with 83 from Marcus D. Smith and Jace Evans of USA Today. Only one player in the history of the NBA has scored more points in one game than Miami Heat star Bam Adebayo, which he scored on March the 10th. Adebayo shattered records with a monster 83-point performance against the Washington Wizards. Adebayo scored 31 points in the first quarter, 12 in the second, 19 in the third, and 21 in the fourth. Only Wilt Chamberlain, who holds the NBA record with a 100-point game, has ever scored more in a single contest. In the process of scoring his 83 points, Adebayo broke a record Chamberlain held with Adrian Dantley for most free throws made in a game. Those two sunk 28 from the free throw line. Adebayo made 36 free throws. Adebayo's 83 points were the most scored in an NBA game since Kobe Bryant scored 81 in a game in 2006. The Heat crushed the Wizards, 150-129. Bam Adebayo sets Heat record for most points in a quarter and a half and in the game. He torched the Washington defense for a team record 31 points in the opening quarter, the most in Heat history for points scored in the first quarter. Adebayo played the entire first quarter. He shot 10 of 16 from the field, including 5 of 8 from long distance. He also got to the line, shooting 6 of 8 on free throws. Adebayo scored a franchise record 43 first-half points on 13 of 24 shooting, 5 of 11 from the three-point line, and 12 of 14 on free throws. He added 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. Miami led the Wizards 76-62 at the halfway point of the game. The three-time All-Star eclipsed team records previously held by LeBron James, who scored 25 points in a quarter in a 2014 game against the Charlotte Bobcats, who are now the Hornets. James went on to score a career-high 61 points that game, which is the Heat franchise record. After James, Kyle Lowry and Tyler Johnson were tied for the second most points for the Heat in a quarter with 22 points. So far, during the 25-26 regular season, Adebayo has averaged 18.9 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. He is 28 years old. In July of 2024, he signed a 3-year, $161 million maximum contract extension with Miami, which includes a player option for the 2028-29 season. He was selected with the 14th overall pick in the 2017 draft by the Heat out of Kentucky.
Claxton leads alma mater Hofstra to March Madness. John Luzzi of USA Today Network writes the following article. The emotions of winning in March were on full display in the Coastal Athletic Association on March the 10th. As time wound down inside Washington, D.C.'s Care First Arena, the CBS Sports Network broadcast caught Hofstra's men's basketball coach, Speedy Claxton, crying into the shoulders of one of his assistant coaches as the 3-seeded Pride defeated number 4 Monmouth 75-69 in the CAA Tournament Championship game to punch their ticket to March Madness. This will mark the first NCAA tournament appearance in over 2 decades for Claxton's alma mater, and the first he's led them to in his 5 years at the helm of the program. The first time Hofstra was included in the NCAA tournament bracket came in the 1999-2000 season when Claxton was a player for the Pride, and Jay Wright was in his 6th season as a college basketball coach before he became a 2-time national championship coach at Villanova. That was also the first of back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances for the Pride. Claxton played for Hofstra from 1996 to 2000 under Wright and remains the program's all-time leader in assists and steals. He now has them in the big dance. Talk about an awesome full-circle moment in March. I'm excited that they get to share this moment with others, with each other, because this is going to last a lifetime. I won championships on a high school level, college level, professional level, and my collegiate championship meant the most to me, Claxton said on CBS Sports Network on the significance of the Pride's win. The Pride look to be on their way to a potential NCAA tournament berth in 2020 after they won the CAA regular season and tournament crowns. But the COVID pandemic took that opportunity away as the NCAA tournament was canceled. To win the 2025-26 season CAA championship, Hofstra also defeated William & Mary 91-62 in the quarterfinals and Towson 68-65 in the semifinals. The Pride will now have to wait a few more days until Selection Sunday to learn who they will open their March Madness run against and where. The NCAA tournament bracket will be released at 6 p.m. on March 15th.
Daniel Jones and the Colts agreed to reunite in free agency. From Nick Brinkerhoff of USA Today, keeping up with the Jones just got a lot harder. Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts have agreed to a 2-year, $88 million deal that could be worth up to $100 million with incentives, according to the NFL media's Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. It's the biggest 2-year deal in NFL history, which will keep the quarterback in Indianapolis through at least 2027. The Colts initially placed the transition tag on Jones, ensuring that they would be able to match any offer in free agency. Instead of exploring other opportunities, Jones will extend his stay in the Hoosier State, hoping to prove that his breakout 2025 season is now the rule, rather than the exception. Jones is still recovering from a torn Achilles that ended his season in Week 14 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. At the very least, his rehab can continue in a familiar place. Jones revived his career in his 7th NFL season, leading the Colts to an 8-5 record and 13 starts, completing 68% of his passes, throwing 19 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Now he has parlayed that into another long-term deal. Jones signed a 2-year, $88 million contract with the Colts per NFL's media's Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. The deal could be worth up to $100 million with incentives and will pay him $50 million this coming season. It marks the quarterback's second big contract in the league, with Jones already totaling over $122 million in career earnings, according to Over the Cap. Drafted by the New York Giants with the number 6 pick in the 2019 draft, Jones experienced 3 up-and-down seasons with Big Blue. The hiring of Brian Daboll proved to be a good thing for Jones' development, turning in a playoff appearance, his first and only to that point, with a 9-6-1 record while completing 67% of passes for 3,205 passing yards and 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. All of that led to the quarterback receiving a 4-year, $160 million contract ahead of the 2023 season. He was promptly released by the Giants in November of 2024 and then signed with the Minnesota Vikings practice squad. He finished the season with the Vikings and then landed with the Colts in free agency ahead of the 2025 season, signing a one-year $14 million deal to compete with Anthony Richardson for the starting job. Jones won that competition and essentially a second lease on NFL life in the process. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:30.
Moving into the entertainment section, Buckner shows youthful pride in Origins, a television article written by Brian Alexander. Young Dwayne Pride is stepping into NCIS Origins. The beloved NCIS leader, famously played by Scott Bakula over 7 NCIS New Orleans seasons, that was 2014 through 21, gets an origin story in the March 17, 9 p.m. Season 2 episode. Former Olympic water polo player Shea Buckner guest stars as the newbie probationary special agent Pride in the NCIS prequel series set up in 1990's Camp Pendleton. Scott Bakula created this character with such charm and charisma, with such a storied career, that Pride was known as King. Buckner tells USA Today, "It wasn't lost on me how important Pride is in the NCIS universe and to fans. As Origins fans know, the show does a masterful job of filling out the backstories for beloved NCIS characters while adhering to the established show's mythology. The late David McCallum's young Donald Ducky Mallard appeared last year, played by Adam Campbell. In NCIS and New Orleans crossovers, supervisory agents Dwayne Cassius, King Pride, played by Bakula, and Leroy Jethro Gibbs, played by Mark Harmon, were trusted friends and colleagues. Show history states that the two first met in the 1980s when Gibbs was a Marine, and again in 90s San Diego. That's it. In the NCIS canon, we know that Pride and Gibbs met up during this time, so it was important to incorporate that into the show, says Gina Lucida Monreal, the Origins co-showrunner with David J. North. But even sticking to canon, there's a lot to be discovered about these two major figures, adds North. That's where the fun is. We had a completely blank slate. Origins paints a comical, volatile, late-night first meeting at a New Orleans bar between Marine Gibbs, played by Austin Stoll, and Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Deputy, moonlighting musician, Pride, played by Buckner, involving Gibbs's overserved dad, Jackson, played by Robert Taylor. Now, Gibbs still harbors a major grudge from their New Orleans bar encounter when meeting Pride against on an NIS 1990s case. Now, despite their outright tension, the two get paired up on an undercover assignment involving arms dealers and a terrible gold chain for Pride. Only Murders in the Building, Season 2 star Buckner wowed the producers as young Pride during auditions. It's difficult casting a young Scott Bakula, North says, but Shea embodied that charisma and spirit. He was the guy. The 6'4" Buckner was born in Huntington Beach, California, and was a star water polo player at the University of Southern Cal, but honed his New Orleans accent to match the St. Louis-born actor Bakula. There's that Pride smile and that accent, Buckner said. Once I settled into the accent, it kind of brings the music to life in the body. Pride is a jazz pianist who doesn't take life too seriously. The Origins role is not Buckner's first NCIS experience. His first acting role was playing suspected sniper Xavier Blackburn in a 2018 NCIS episode, who was grilled by the OG Gibbs played by Harmon. It got heated, said Buckner. But afterward, Harmon, once a star quarterback at USC rival University of Southern Los Angeles, he talked sports with Buckner. I got to really meet Mark and go into his amazing trailer, says Buckner. He shared his experience as a UCLA quarterback. I went to USC. He was UCLA, a UCLA Bruin, but we looked past it. Besides Pride's story, the Origins episode called Feelin' All Right shows the beginnings of the Fed Five, the celebrated NCIS group active until 1994, which consisted of Pride, played by Bakula, Gibbs, played by Harmon, NIS agent Felix Betts, played by Stuart Margolin, and was led by Michael Franks, played by Muse Watson, along with Dan McLean, who was deceased in NCIS, but talked about. In the Origins tale, young Franks, played by Origins regular Kyle Schmid, has an evolving relationship with McLean, played by Mark Declan. Young NIS agent Betts is played by Adam Kolbersch. With the Fed Five formed, the group would appear in future Origins episodes. Certainly, there will be a presence because the Fed Five existed in the NCIS canon, says North. How much we'll actually see of them is yet to be determined.
Scarpetta stars ponder life's mysteries off screen too. From Aaron Jensen of USA Today. Nicole Kidman doesn't tremble or get squeamish putting on the putting on the white lab coat of Kay Scarpetta, chief medical examiner at the heart of Patricia Cornwell's series of crime thriller novels, now adapted for a Prime Video show by Amazon, MGM Studios, and Blumhouse Television. Kidman's late parents, clinical psychologist Anthony Kidman and nursing instructor Janelle Kidman, would sit me down to watch medical films. The Oscar winner, who is 58, tells USA Today, "That's how I learned so much about life, is that they would go watch this medical film. We'd be like, my sister, younger sister, Antonia Kidman, and I'd be like, you're kidding. So I don't have a fear of blood or anything. So when I learned to do autopsies, I was like, okay, teach me." A forensic medical examiner on the set taught Kidman how you hold the scalpel and how you stick your fingers in there, series creator Elizabeth Sarnoff says. Sarnoff had the job of dissecting Cornwell's 29 works, which began rolling out in 1990 for the small screen. Season 1 of Scarpetta, all 8 episodes out now, adapts post-mortem, an autopsy splitting screen time and autopsy between the present day and the flashbacks, as Kay, played by Kidman and Rosie McEwen, and her brother-in-law, former Detective Pete Marino, played by Bobby Cannavale and Jake Cannavale, investigate a murder reminiscent of a pivotal case from nearly 30 years ago. In her personal life, Scarpetta struggles to navigate a rocky relationship with her sister Dorothy, played by Jamie Lee Curtis and Amanda Rigetti, and sustain her marriage to FBI profiler Benton Wesley, played by Simon Baker and Hunter Parrish. Ariana DeBose also stars as Dorothy's daughter Lucy. For those keeping score, that's 3 Oscar-winning actresses, Kidman, Curtis, and DeBose. Sarnoff, a fan of the books, which have sold more than 100 million copies, explains that she couldn't give too much thought to Patricia's fans or the book fans or trying to please them, because then I feel like the devil is a little bit whispering in your ear. So I really just thought about, what's the best story we can tell? What is the best story to illuminate the inner lives of these characters? And how can we do it so that it's both a mystery and exciting, but also an emotional drama that you find yourself getting sucked into? The tragic murder of Kay and Dorothy's dad when they were young deeply affect their lives. What that does and how that shapes people and what path that sends them down is very, very evident here. Curtis, who is 67, tells USA Today, sitting beside Kidman. Obviously, Dorothy is acting out from that death and that experience. And Scarpetta wants control over death, Kidman says. And that's something that I discovered from the medical examiner. Also, obviously, from the novels about why do you choose to become a medical examiner? That is a particular choice, and the motivation of that deep inside, which seems to be similar for a lot of medical examiners, is the idea of accuracy and control over death, knowing why or how. I almost relate to that. I lost my father in 2014, and my main thing was finding out why. I lost him very suddenly to a heart attack, but I wanted to know why, and it became an obsession. So I get why Kay chooses to do the job, because it gives her a sense of control over something that is completely uncontrollable. From Dorothy's standpoint, control, Curtis says, what can we control in this world? Nothing. So let's go live. Off screen, the fragility of life inspires the actresses to meet every moment. That's a stoic principle, Kidman says, where you consider death every day to enjoy life. I was raised by a stoic. I am a carpe diem kind of person, Curtis says. I seize every day. First of all, the world has had a lot of loss. We both personally have had losses. We both lost a mutual friend who was a business associate of both of ours in a freak accident. And recently in Los Angeles, the murders of my dear friends and the loss of now a few people in the past couple weeks. There's been a big dose of loss in my personal life, in our personal lives, the Star says, likely referencing the deaths of Rob and Michelle Reiner, Catherine O'Hara, Robert Carradine, and others. And we're at war. We're at war right now, and so far that war is lost. And so I certainly am the type of person who I wake up every day with a fresh start, a carpe diem. I am a sober person, so I wake up with the promise of a new day, the promise of what it might bring. And I've always woken up in a good mood, Kidman says. I never wake up in a bad mood. So if that is carpe diem just intrinsically, it is, Curtis assures her. Nicole and Jamie are wide awake, Kidman says, and interested, Curtis adds, and curious, Kidman continues, and grateful to be here.
Moving on to the book section of Life, Bertinelli shares her journey in a book called Naked. Melissa Ruggieri of USA Today writes, Valerie Bertinelli knows you might be judging her. She couldn't care less. If someone wants to spend months writing and lying about me, they can, because it doesn't define who I am. Bertinelli tells USA Today, it does not change who I am. I know who I am. I want everybody to say to themselves in the mirror, you are a good person. Get used to it. Bertinelli at 65 and perennially adorable in a beret, glasses, and comfy striped sweater is chatting from her bedroom, sipping from a mug, and sharing insights about love, self-acceptance, and moving beyond traumas that might otherwise define us. Those are the tenets of her book, Getting Naked, the quiet work of becoming perfectly imperfect. It's out now, and it's from HarperCollins. But they're not merely armchair psychiatry tropes. This is a woman who has lived through heartache, struggled with anxiety, loved and lost, and endured the raw grind of intense therapy to land at self-acceptance. Now, frankly, she'd be just as thrilled if we could spend our interview time discussing our mutual admiration of Wolfgang Van Halen, her almost 35-year-old musician son, with late guitar legend Eddie Van Halen, and a shared adoration of cats. But Bertinelli wants to help people, which is why she shares her menopause journey, her frightening health ordeals, her complicated relationship with body image, and discloses, late in the book, that she was sexually abused at the age of 11. The specifics are not shared. It doesn't matter who, when, or how it all happened, she writes, not wanting to give airtime to the exclamation point of it all. My God, the people I've heard from, Bertinelli says, I got so many direct messages, did my best to respond to as many as I could. My heart broke because people just want to be seen. They just want to go, me too. And it really sucks. I want to say, yes, let's not be in pain any longer. We never deserved it. Bertinelli's career has spanned TV, One Day at a Time, Hot in Cleveland, numerous books on cooking, including Indulge and One Dish at a Time, a near decade as a Food Network constant on Valerie's Home Cooking, and more self-help by way of experience books titled Enough Already, Losing It, and then Finding It. Along with her new book, Bertinelli's latest ventures, a Lifetime movie with Eric McCormack called Love Again, which is coming out in May, and her online hub, Valerie's Place, it's cooking, podcast, book club, make it clear she still has plenty to say. Here are some other insights about getting naked, such as Bertinelli's enduring love for Eddie Van Halen. Bertinelli and Eddie, or as she called him, Ed, they married young. He was 26, she was 21, and were together for 26 years. Bertinelli's second marriage to financial planner Tom Vitale lasted just more than a decade. A divorce was finalized in 2022. Now, she has spoken frequently about dating, but she also has never wavered from declaring her endless love for Van Halen, who died of cancer in 2020, with Bertinelli among the beloved by his bedside. She writes in the book about how, in her own way, we never did let go, and says their deep love will be difficult to match. Had we not had other things going on, we might have still been married. But Ed was going through his own struggles and trauma, she says now. I'm so glad we came to a spot where we were good, dear friends. I cared immensely about him. I still love him to this day. But when I say that, people are like, what? It's because I love the human being. I love his soul. He was a good man who was struggling with trauma. When he was sober, there was nobody like him. Bertinelli says she has now gotten to a point where I am allowed to love Eddie Van Halen and the son they had together. It's living proof of their bond. It doesn't negate what he had with his second marriage and doesn't negate what I had with my second marriage. Your heart is huge. You can love a lot. And I choose to love the man that gave me my son. Would we have ever been intimate again had he lived? No, I don't believe so. We'd gotten to a point beyond that, but I sure did love him, and I still do. She adds with a laugh, I feel his presence a lot, and I sometimes yell at him. Every so often I'm like, Ed, you got to help me get through this one. I want Wolfie to be okay. Come on, do what you can do from the other side. Now, Bertinelli is content by herself. One thing she stresses in the book and in conversation is her ability to finally come to peace with herself, even if by herself. Right now, she says, I'm not interested in having a relationship. I'm a very, very, very gun-shy person at this moment. Trust will take me a minute to develop. I fall hard and easily. So my whole thing is, I've got to take my time and not buy into limerence and not buy into love bombing. And if I end up alone with my cats and my dog, I'm fine with that. You have to love yourself first. Bertinelli is fulfilled by her friends and family life, whether texting with girlfriends about Wordle or spending time with her son and his wife, Andrea. I have a full life, she says. Do I want to be intimate with a man again? At this moment, no. Bertinelli says she has always envisioned Getting Naked to be a self-help, a self-love book, but she realized that she couldn't advise others how to love themselves unless she could. That led to her decision to disclose her sexual abuse trauma. Something had happened where I had trusted somebody with my vulnerability and my shame, and they turned around in anger and used it as a weapon to hurt me. And it was kind of like a light bulb. Or so this is a weapon I've been using on myself, and I've been giving people free rein to use my shame, she says. So I'm going to take that away as a weapon for myself and for other people that may want to cause me harm. At the advice of a friend's therapist daughter, Bertinelli learned about eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and the results, she says, changed my life. It got me to a point where I could go through difficult memories and traumas and talk about them, where they don't make me an anxious mess. Like the trauma isn't me, it's just something that happened. But the healing that I did to get through it, that is me, all me. And through the help, obviously, with talented therapists. But I'm the one that had to walk through it and go back there. So I decided that that defines me, the strength that I carry to go to difficult places and make them not difficult any longer, to where now I can talk about it out loud. And it doesn't shame me. It doesn't make me get smaller. It's just something that happened in my life, and I've dealt with it. The tool that I have in my toolbox is that I love myself.
Returning to the sports section for this article, Sports Minister. Iran won't play in the World Cup, from Seth Vertenley of USA Today. Iran will not participate in the 2026 World Cup, according to the country's sports minister, Ahmad Daniamali. Iran's participation in the soccer tournament, co-hosted by the United States, has been in doubt after the U.S. and Israel launched attacks on Iran on February 28. The military war killed the nation's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and dozens of top officials. Iran has responded with attacks on several U.S. military facilities and other targets around the Middle East. Amid the growing conflict, Dani Amali said it was not feasible for Iran to send a team to the United States in just 3 months. Considering that this corrupt regime, the U.S., has assassinated our leader, under no circumstances can we participate in the World Cup, he told state television. Our children are not safe, and fundamentally, such conditions for participation do not exist. Given the malicious actions they have carried out against Iran, they have forced 2 wars on us over 8 or 9 months and have killed thousands of our people. Therefore, we definitely have no possibility of participating in this way. The World Cup will be co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico between June 11th and July 19th. Iran is currently scheduled to play New Zealand in Los Angeles on June 15th, Belgium in Los Angeles on June 21st, and Egypt in Seattle on June 26th. Dani Amali's comments came after FIFA President Gianni Infantino said the U.S. President Donald Trump told him that Iran would be welcome at the World Cup despite the ongoing conflict. But last week, Trump said in an interview with Politico that he didn't care if Iran played at the World Cup. USA Today Sports reached out to FIFA for comment on Dani Amali's declaration that Iran would not participate at the World Cup. The governing body said it had nothing to add beyond Infantino's statement on his meeting with Trump. Under FIFA regulations, it has broad latitude to replace a country that withdraws from a World Cup, according to Article 6.7 of FIFA's World Cup regulations. If any participating member association withdraws and or is excluded from the FIFA World Cup 26, FIFA shall decide on the matter at its sole discretion and take whatever action is deemed necessary. The next team up could be Iraq, which qualified for an inter-confederation playoff this month in Mexico. But Iraq also has been caught up in the conflict, with the country's airspace currently closed and domestic-based players unable to travel. Head coach Graham Arnold recently requested a delay in the match.
According to the Lifeline, style star Zendaya, who is celebrating Paris Fashion Week in bridal style. The Challenger star, age 29, stepped out at the Louis Vuitton show March 10th in a structured white shirt dress with crisp collar and high-low hemline, accessorized with a black belt and sky-high black pumps. That sounds like what I'm wearing right now. Her hair was in a sleek bob with a side part, and she sported a pair of bands on her left ring finger. The outing came after Zendaya's stylist, Law Roach, told Access Hollywood that she and Tom Holland are married. The actors have not commented on the claim. So, it's your birthday, and who is celebrating today? Actor Barbara Feldon, age 93. You oldsters out there may remember a TV show called Get Smart.
Yes.
Cinematographer Dean Cudney, 80. Singer Liza Minnelli, 80. Voice actor Frank Welker, 80. Singer James Taylor, 78. Director-producer Rob Cohen, age 77. Bassist Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, turned 70. Singer Marlon Jackson of the Jackson 5, turned 69. Comedian actor Luenell, 67. Actor Courtney B. Vance of, Law and Order fame, 66. Actor Jason Begg, 66. Actor Titus Welliver, 64. You might recall he plays Bosch on the streaming service. 64. Actor Jake Weber, 63. Actor Aaron Eckhart, 58. TV news anchor Jake Tapper, 57. Author Dave Eggers, 56. Singer Pete Doherty of the Libertines, 47. Singer Holly Williams, age 45. Actor Sam Levine, 44. Actor Jamie Alexander, 42. And actor Melina Weissman, age 23.
You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, March the 12th, 2026. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, please call 821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring.